What's up, YouTubers? So I have these two vehicles here, super old classics. Well, actually one of them has a Miata inside, but I'll get to that later. And they both have super old, crusty paint jobs. And what I'm gonna do today, well, this video took a couple weeks. What I'm gonna do is polish them up with different techniques, and we're gonna compare the difference. Now, it's not exactly comparing apples to apples because the color is so much different and the paint is so much different. So on this red car here, this Volkswagen, the paint is not original and it was super dull, incredibly dull. And now on this blue truck, it's a little more shiny. But I have a goal with that one is I'll get to that later. But I want both these just to look better. And so we're gonna start with the red one first. Now that is my 1967 VW Squareback, and it basically has a Miata inside. It has it's a chassis conversion, very unconventional, and you can look at my videos if you want to see how I did that, because I have a whole build process for it. But first thing you're gonna want to do is wash it. Of course, I think that's a given. And I was using the pressure washer here with the hot soap, and on the hood you could kind of see the pattern in the power washer, kind of like when you're washing a sidewalk or something. So I had to really get that really good. Okay, now what I'm using on the Squareback is the Boiled Linseed Oil trick, and I'm actually going to thin that out a little bit with some paint thinner. So the reason why I'm thinning it out is because I just want it to not be as glossy and oily and greasy, because I'm going to a car show and only a few days after I did this, and I didn't want so when you're doing the boiled linseed oil, it's kind of tacky and greasy for maybe the first week, especially if you don't thin it. And that's fine, because then when that goes away, you have this like really nice matte satin sheen, and it really just, what it's doing is really feeding the paint. It makes it a world of difference, because this red paint that someone sprayed on there was super cheap and had this like chalky kind of brick texture, not texture but color, and this just makes it look a lot better. And I actually, in the past, I've experimented with polishing it with rubbing compound, and it was kind of changing the color from that brick color to more of a pink, and I just didn't like that. So I went with the boiled linseed oil, and that was perfect for this paint. Now, it's not going to be perfect for every paint, but I really liked it for this car. So I've done this a few times. I think this is my third time, and it only lasts a few months if you keep it outside. Keep it inside and you drive it a dozen or 2 times a year, it might last for years. But I've done it 3 times now, and because I keep it outside now. So what's really important when you're putting this down is do a section, do a hood or a whole hood or half a hood, and then get a clean paper towel and wipe off all the excess. That's really important, because I've heard guys that skip that step and they say, hey, it never really dried and you just had this sticky, gross, gooey mess, and they hated it. So this is important, very important. So now you can see me wiping it down here. here it is immediately after wiping it on and wiping it all off. And like I said, I had a car show to get to in just a few days after this. And I got there. It was about a 3-hour drive, maybe 4 hours at the speed I was going. And it looked great. It looked perfect. It wasn't greasy and oily at all. And I actually even won an award. So this is an award-winning technique, guys. And now we have arrived at the other vehicle that we're working on here. This is a 66 F100, completely original, except for the engine. The engine has a V8 in it now. And this is the original paint as well. And it's not as bad as the Volkswagen's paint. Now, yes, it's rusty. You can see all the rust stains. And so what this technique is going to be is I'm going to scrub off all the rust stains with CLR and steel wool, and then I'm going to polish it with rubbing compound. And we're going to see how that looks. So my main goal of why I'm working on this, because I want this to be a little more obvious that it's a light blue. In these photos and videos even, it looks like just like a dirty white. Like people look at it and don't even realize it's blue. So I think this is what I'm experimenting, is that if I clean it up really good, it's gonna just look more like a blue instead of like a white. So I'm getting started here with CLR and steel wool, and you'll see right away how it cleans off all those rust stains. It doesn't remove the rust from the sheet metal where there's no paint at all, but where there is paint, those are just stains. And those stains are pretty easy to remove using this CLR technique. And I really needed a hose for this job, but I didn't have one on this side of the house, so I was just being lazy and using a bucket of water and a cup. And it's okay, but it would have been a lot better to wash it off with a hose, because that CLR, you don't want to leave it on there. It's very corrosive. And when I was finished with this CLR bath here, I gave it a good wash at the car wash. So at this point my fingers started to burn, both from the CLR and just from holding on to that little piece of steel wool. So I went to the store and I got some gloves, and I also picked up a green Scotch-Brite pad, and I was able to find a sandpaper holder that would work with it. And this allowed me to cover ground so much faster, because there's a lot of sheet metal on this old full-size pickup here. However, I will say that I think that if I was to inspect it closely, I would say, hey, this Scotch-Brite pad left bigger scratches in the paint than the steel wool. So if you want to shine up your old car or truck even more than I am, I would stick with the steel wool instead of the Scotch-Brite pad. All I'm doing is when I'm finished with this, all I'm going to do is use rubbing compound and then stop there. But if you want to use like a 3-step process where you have like a coarser grit compound, then a finer grit compound, and then a polish, you would see those scratches, I think. But since I was just using compound only, just a medium compound, I didn't really see those scratches. That wasn't a problem. Okay, so now I'm working on the hood, and the hood is different because there's so much paint that just doesn't exist up there in that rust area. But I went over it anyways, and why not? Why not? Really needed a hose for this step because it was easy enough to wash it off the vertical surfaces, but the horizontal surface, it didn't have the same velocity, and had to get a couple buckets to wash it all off. So that was it for the CLR, scrubbing off all the rust stains. I can move on to the compound here, and I'm using a random orbit sanding buffing tool from Harbor Freight that I got many years ago, and it's about at the end of its life cycle, but I'm using it on this job here, and I'm gonna admit I don't really know what I'm doing. So if you're gonna follow what I'm saying, then get some second advice from another YouTuber on exactly how to use the compound and use this machine here. For example, I don't know if I was using the right pad, if it was the right speed, if I had enough compound on there, if it was the right technique, and all these things make a difference. Because right off the bat, I'm working on the hood first, and I made a mistake, and I was actually trying to polish the rust there on the hood in the middle, and the problem was that the compound like burned onto it or stuck onto it somehow, and I could not get it off. And you'll see later in the video, I'm gonna have to deal with that later. Felt like I was polishing a turd at this point because this tailgate is so banged up and rusty, and holes, there's a hole right there, and dents and everything. It's a bit like polishing a turd. But that was the last piece there, and there you have it. Now I got one polished turd, and I think it looks a lot better. So in this video, I had taken it to the car wash already and really washed it. Okay, now you can see the hood, and even trying to power wash that off with the power washer at the car wash, I could not get those white smudges out of the rust stains. So we'll deal with that in a minute. Alright, so the first thing I tried to get these white smudges out of the hood rust is just a little paint thinner. I thought maybe I could dissolve whatever residue was stuck in there, and I think it did help in the end, but I was really rubbing it hard and I could not get it at all. So when the paint thinner's on there and it's wet, it looks great. And also what this is demonstrating here is that I could have rubbed boiled linseed oil just on this hood rust, and I've seen people do that. They'll kind of blend these two techniques together. They'll polish the paint where it's good, and they'll put boiled linseed oil on it where it's only just rust, no paint at all. But I didn't do that, and so now I'm moved on to the next and final step. I'm using this, it's called a hybrid ceramic wax, brand new product from Meguiar's, and I just spray it on, and then I really get it wet and cover every inch of the surface there, and then I wipe it all off with a clean towel, and that was making a difference. And that was, I think now after I applied this wax, you could barely tell that there was any smudges stuck in that rust. And overall it did add a little bit of a gloss to the final finish of the paint here, but more so it was just about the protection, because I wanted to put something on it so that it wouldn't just flash rust next time it rained. So this is a little bit of protection, and I don't know how long this will last, maybe a year, but it was also expensive. And that brings me to my next point, is this whole technique I'm using on this truck is so much more expensive than the boiled linseed oil technique, because so I had to get the CLR and the steel wool and then the compound, and I already had that tool, but that was, a $50 tool, if not more. And then the ceramic wax. But I also think it paid off, and look at the results. Thanks for watching, guys, and good luck to you out there. Peace out.